It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. In an era of chaos, confusion, and craziness, Ferenc is a voice for common sense. As a financial literacy educator, speaker, and entrepreneur, Ferenc cuts through the noise to help us understand how current events affect our money, economy, and our freedom. Now, here's Ferenc Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com, the Your Personal Bank app, or you can email me at ferenc@yourpersonalbank.com. That's F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end. Ferenc@yourpersonalbank.com. So the 30-year mortgage rate recently just hit 7% again. Probably couldn't have happened at a worse time when it comes to the real estate market. We've seen some of the lowest purchase buying activities on record. Prices still remain on the high side for most people. And with the mortgage rate moving back up, it just means fewer people are going to be able to afford to purchase a home. And just to give you an idea, if you took a $400,000 loan with an interest rate of 6.5% over 30 years, you would pay a total of over $500,000 in interest. You would actually pay more in interest than the purchase price of the home. The first decade of payments are almost entirely interest payments and hardly any principal payments. This is why refinancing a mortgage later in the loan makes no sense, because you're finally getting to the point of where you're knocking down some of the principal. Also, those that do refinance loans when they're still in the first decade rarely get ahead because the vast majority of their payment has just been to interest. They've knocked down very little principal. So we're seeing a historic slowdown in home buyers. In fact, it's now estimated per Redfin that sellers now exceed buyers by over 600,000, making the widest gap ever recorded. Rents across the country continue to decline. Austin, rents are down 22% from the peak. Colorado Springs, almost 16%. Phoenix, 14%. San Antonio, nearly 14%. Denver, 12.5%. Salt Lake, almost 12%. Atlanta, down 11%. And Dallas, down 10.5%. Across the Sun Belt and the West, landlords are offering huge rent cuts, some cases even offering 2 or 3 months free rent just to have them move in. A 10, 15, even 20% drop in rent income may not seem like a lot, but if you understand the rental market, that's a huge cut. For a landlord, that can mean upwards of half or more of their profits being wiped out. Regardless of what you charge for rent, a landlord still has expenses, property taxes, maintenance costs, etc. I was discussing this recently with a potential client and listener who was considering purchasing some rental property. And when I shared with them that the rental prices in their markets had been dropping about 15% from the peak, they were completely unaware of that, and that the profitability had been significantly cut. I have a large number of real estate investors, many who have been in the business for decades, who are now sitting on the sidelines because they can't make the numbers work. The prices are still too high. If they have to take a mortgage, interest rates recently gone above 7%. For investors, it's usually higher. Other real estate investors I know are barely breaking even, or if they're lucky, have significant vacancies. If they're lucky, they might be getting 3 or 4% now return on investment. Folks, it's a tough time out there being a real estate investor. Look, if you have a system that's working for you, great. Kudos to you. But if you're looking to get into the real estate market, or like many are doing, getting out, you might want to sit on the sidelines for a little while and wait this out and see what happens. The solution to this has to be one or more of the 3 possibilities for the real estate market to get back to some sort of normal. Prices need to drop about 1/3. Incomes need to increase by about 25%, the average income that is. Or interest rates on mortgages need to drop in half roughly. 3 scenarios. The one that's most likely is obviously prices coming down. Saying this, I'll repeat it again for quite some time. If you're looking to buy and you're not in a hurry, it might benefit you to wait. If you're looking to sell and you haven't already and you need to, I'd strongly recommend getting on it or looking at Plan B. Oftentimes, Plan B is renting the property out. But again, in many markets, the rental market has declined. So it's getting tougher and tougher. We've seen this before. We saw it in the 08-09 Great Recession. Real estate got to be a really, really tough business to be in. I'm beginning to think it may end up being something similar to that, or as significant, not for the same reasons, but the overall effect. Tread lightly, be very, very careful with real estate right now. Since the first of the year, the markets have shown weakness. The current war in Iran has caused additional concerns. Many stocks have hit what would be considered key levels. It's too early to determine right now what direction they're going to go. There's a lot of uncertainty, which creates volatility. They certainly could mark time, in essence, kind of go up and down, which is kind of what they're doing at the moment. We could see a leg down. There could be a leg back up. But I think the most likely scenario is a lot of uncertainty for a while until things get settled down. With the Iran war and a lot of other things, there's a lot of consumer debt, folks. That's really hurting the economy, which hurts businesses, which hurts stock prices. The real estate market, as I stated earlier, is basically frozen. And until that changes significantly, that has an impact on the economy, consumer buying power. Those are the concerns that the markets have, and rightly so. But on another subject I want to touch on, a lot of people don't realize this with the U.S. Census, that not only illegal aliens are counted, but so are HB1 visa holders, green card workers, other work permit holders. And the question that begs to be answered is, why should this wave of foreigners determine who we vote for or impact our elections in any way? Or why should some of our representatives be there because they were counted? And we all know there's SNAP fraud and EBT fraud, Medicaid, Medicare fraud, healthcare fraud, daycare fraud, medical transportation, and hospice fraud. And some are still out there trying to say, but we may have all those frauds, but there's definitely no election fraud. You have to be pretty naive. And one of the things we've noticed recently with the TSA not getting paid and the airport lines getting exceedingly long in many airports, and then Trump bringing in the ICE to the airports to help out TSA, immediately the delays plummeted. They went from multiple hours to nearly nothing. And it's interesting, every time ICE deploys, TSA lines plummet, traffic vanishes, emergency rooms clear out, construction sites become ghost towns, class sizes shrink, and not a little bit, but significantly. I think the story that we've been told that there's 20 million illegal aliens in this country is way, way conservative. There are credible reports that there are upwards of 100 million foreigners in our country, many of them illegal. And I'm beginning to think more and more that that's probably a more accurate number. No one really knows. I had somebody I was talking to recently. They were in the urgent care with their son. And there was an illegal ahead of them asking what the price was, and they were told it was free. How did I know that it was illegal? It's because he heard them discussing it with the urgent care staff. We've had a lot of inflation in this country. Costs have gone up dramatically. Food, for example, 30% or more. Housing, obviously. Class sizes have exploded. TSA lines. That one is really eye-opening to see lines that go on for 3, 4, saw some as long as 5 hours. And the next day, literally one day later, when ICE shows up, the lines basically disappear. There's a group of people who have gained power, elected and otherwise, that thought it was a good idea for them, and maybe it was. They benefited somehow. Certainly there's a lot of fraud. Trump himself has stated our deficit could be largely resolved if we just eliminated the fraud. I'm beginning to think he's right. There's a fight going on in this country, difference of opinions. Many in the judicial branch have done everything they can to slow this down because it obviously benefits them. But I think this is a fight worth having because I know I didn't vote to make my life more difficult and have to support tens of millions of people that have come into our country, legally and otherwise. This fight is going to be messy. And the good news is more and more people are waking up to it. Not only the illegal immigration, but the legal immigration, which I'm going to touch on, and the economic impacts of that here in the next segment. But it also is going to be uncertain. It's going to create volatility. Probably wise to protect yourself. Index products will do that. It's a common misconception that if you want guarantees, you have to give up strong returns. That is totally false. We have products that have averaged 10, 11, even 12% average annual returns over a decade plus with no downside market risk. So if things do go up from here, the markets have shown weakness since the first of the year, but let's say it does recover. Great, you can take advantage of it. Unlimited upside gains. But if it does go the other way, and certainly that can happen, we see a correction, you don't lose. So either way, heads you win, tails you win, doesn't matter. That's the beauty of index products, and you can get strong returns with guarantees. If you want more information, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or Ferenc, F-E-R-E-N-C, at yourpersonalbank.com. It's Ferenc, no E, F-E-R-E-N-C. Stay tuned in the next segment. I want to discuss the economic impacts of legal immigration we've had in this country.
This is Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. My show focuses on creating tax-free buckets of money, insured, guaranteed, highly liquid, and the ability to create positive arbitrage. Did you know this is the best time in over 40 years to invest in index annuities? An index annuity allows you to 1. Grow your money safely without market risk. Once gains are locked in, they're guaranteed against future market loss. 2. Double-digit potential upside on good market years with no losses in bad years. Principal is guaranteed. 3. A 7 to 8% fixed interest option is available in the first year. If you're interested in growing your money with potential index-related gains without downside market risk, this is the best time in over 40 years to consider an annuity. If your annuity is over 2 years old, the newer products likely have far superior potential returns. Please contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. You can reach me at yourpersonalbank.com or Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com. It's F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end, F-E-R-E-N-C at yourpersonalbank.com. I've discussed the economic impact of illegal immigration on this country quite a lot. But what is less known by most people is the economic impact our country has been facing recently, well, in the last few decades actually, with legal immigration. Do you realize that 40% of Filipino households in the U.S. are on one or more forms of welfare? 59% of Mexican households receive some form of welfare. 2/3 of Guatemalans and 95% of Afghan families in the United States are on some form of welfare. These are the people that came on the airplanes largely when we pulled out of Afghanistan during that Biden pullout, and there were people literally on the planes. There was no vetting whatsoever. If you remember the videos, there were literally people on the planes falling off as the plane was taking off. It was horrific. And look, I feel bad for the people themselves. I understand why they want to come to this country. Our government should not have allowed this. Americans never voted to create a global welfare state. We hear this constantly from CEOs and politicians, that one, AI will automate millions of jobs out of existence, but then they also will say we have to bring in unlimited H-1B visas into the country. But you'll hear both of those messages, and they are diametrically opposed. AI is going to replace all these jobs. Why do we need all these extra people here? Both can't be true. A few examples. Amazon recently laid off 30,000 Americans. They got 12,000 HB1 visas approved in that same time frame. Meta laid off 16,000 while bringing in 5,000 visas in. Microsoft laid off 3,400 and brought in 5,000 visas. So they actually brought in more than they laid off. So is AI really taking the jobs? Or is this just a way for companies to hire cheaper labor? It's not just in the tech field or even the lower wage jobs. It's even affecting us in the medical field. In the last 10 years, the United States has seen a steady rise in foreign medical students taking up U.S. student residency spots. Each year, about 1,000 U.S. medical students fail to match, while over 6,000 foreign medical students do match. And on average, each year, we have 500 to 600 U.S. medical students who can't find a job in the medical field, therefore they have a worthless medical degree. If we have 500 to 600 medical students who cannot find a job in their field, why are we bringing in all these foreign medical doctors? It makes no sense. And this is something that kind of shocked me. About half of U.S. Postal Service drivers are non-citizens. They're the ones that deliver mail-in ballots, aren't they? Why are we trusting foreign non-citizens to deliver our ballots? And there's this whole argument about the Save America Act. Getting an ID is difficult and all that. The application for food stamps is 27 pages. And recently we had 43 million people on food stamps, of which about half of those, according to the U.S. government, were illegal aliens, and about 35% were legal foreign residents. Now, I still fail to understand how an illegal, somebody who's illegally here, they're not supposed to even be here, how they can be on welfare. I do not understand that. Also, legal residents, green card, visa holders, etc., non-citizens are also not supposed to be eligible for welfare benefits. Yet the U.S. government tells us about 35% of those that are on food stamps, for example, are exactly those. In 1970, there were 8 welfare programs. Today, there are over 80. So the welfare programs have exploded tenfold. In 1970, we had about 1 million illegals estimated. And today, I think the 20 million number is bogus. Look at the lines in the airport with just the TSA. The next day when ICE showed up, the lines literally disappeared just about everywhere. The number of illegals in this country is probably closer to 50. It could even be as high as 100 million people. It's shocking when you start to really put it together and put 2 and 2 together. Also, in 1970, we had a $370 billion deficit. Today, it's 10 times that, $38 trillion. So our welfare programs increased tenfold. So did our debt. That's where most of the money went. HB1s were supposed to be the best and the brightest. 2 economists did an in-depth study recently, and the data actually shows that the average HB1 visa holder gets paid about 15% less than the typical U.S. or American worker with the same job, same field, same everything. So are we dealing with the best and the brightest and a labor shortage, or is this just cheaper labor? And the facts bear that out. Another study shows that 87% of H-1B visas are in the lowest wage tiers. So they're entry level. 87%. This isn't the best and the brightest. It's labor replacement, cheaper labor. When I found this last study here, I was shocked. They looked at petitions for HB1 visas for the past 17 years. This was pulled directly from the U.S. government. Of the over 6 million H-1B petitions for the past 17 years, almost 94% were approved. That is not a screening process. That is not the best and the brightest, not by any stretch. And here's where it's so devastating as an economic impact to our country. Well, what's interesting about OPT is that the companies do not have to pay payroll tax. So not only can they pay the foreign worker less, they also don't have to pay payroll taxes, which saves them another 7.5%. How is the U.S. worker supposed to compete against that? Plus, the foreign worker, their work visa is what gives them the right to be in the country legally. They're typically more compliant. They don't want to risk their job, so now the companies have more control. It's kind of a form of slave labor if you want to look at it that way. The worst part about this is U.S. citizens, young people wanting to get a start in life. Because again, these were entry-level jobs. The U.S. citizens, the young people have fewer savings, fewer purchased homes. fewer start families. And it gets even worse. FedEx recently received over $2 billion in taxpayer-funded federal contracts, and then proceeded to fire hundreds of American workers, and at the same time ramped up their H-1B visas. Not one elected official condemned it. Even the Times of India called it suspicious. So our taxpayer dollars go into a contract that then is, for the most part, going to foreign workers that are brought into our country. Microsoft did the same thing, a $6 billion contract in federal money, plus tax breaks, then did mass layoffs of Americans, thousands of them, and at the same time received thousands of H-1B approvals. This is betrayal by our elected leaders on steroids. And for decades, our country has had this insane immigration policy of importing millions of people who take jobs away from Americans, and at the same time importing millions of people who can't or won't work and need public assistance. This is the worst of both worlds. Every dollar wasted on illegals, foreign workers, is a dollar stolen from American families. There's some good news on this front. USCIS is now starting to block H-1B holders who lose their employment from getting another work visa. It used to be if you had an HB1 work visa, you could stay in the country while you were looking for another job to stay. But now they're being denied because, as the government is stating, those who lose their employment will have to leave the nation. And then if they apply for another HB1, H-1B, there is the new $100,000 fee. So that's a step in the right direction. Also, H-1B visas and other work visas are down, not as down as they should be, but about 350,000 of them have come into the country since January 2025. At the same time, deportations were about double that. So while ICE is deporting nearly 700,000 people, about half of that came in legally. So we're seeing a slowdown, but in my opinion, both the deportations need to increase. Illegals don't belong here, folks. They broke the law. They just don't belong here, and they're impacting our economy negatively, taking jobs away from Americans. None of us voted for that. And like a large Thanksgiving meal, we've just had too many people come into this country, legal or otherwise. That needs to be curtailed dramatically. We need a chance to digest. We need a break. Let's get rid of the illegals and dial back the work visas and all those other legal methods way back. Gives us a chance for our country to heal, our economy to heal, allows young people in particular to have a fair shot at getting a job in their field. Prices of nearly everything will go down. Inflation will be alleviated for the most part. It'll be safer. We'll have less crime. Class sizes will decline. Emergency rooms will have shorter lines. We'll have shorter lines at the airports and less traffic on the roads. This is all good stuff. And our government will not have to spend so much darn money because our debt is over $39 trillion. None of this is good. It needs to be changed. Direction needs to change. And change is uncomfortable. Change causes uncertainty. Change causes volatility. Some of this is going to be ugly. Some of it's going to be hard. I understand that, but it is for the greater good, for a better future. Short-term pain for long-term gain. When it comes to your money, protect yourself. Index products do that. Gives you unlimited upside gains, no downside market risk. There's a common fallacy out there that if you want guarantees, you have to give up strong returns. That is absolutely not true. Not if you're in good index products. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. We have products that have averaged 10, 11, 12% average annual returns in your pocket, real returns, net of everything, for the past decade plus. If you want more information, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or email me at Ferenc, it's F-E-R-E-N-C, no E, F-E-R-E-N-C at yourpersonalbank.com.
This is Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. Your Personal Bank is a financial concept that allows you to grow your money insured with guarantees, income tax-free, and highly liquid. Also, you have the potential to continue to earn interest on money you invest in other assets, purchase items, or pay expenses. How can you do this? First, invest in a high cash value policy to earn dividends. If you leave money in the policy, it'll grow like any investment, insured with guarantees and tax-free. Second, we establish a bank line of credit using the cash in the policy as collateral. When you access funds, you receive them from the bank. Typically, dividends earned are higher than the interest charged by the bank. You keep the difference. This is known as positive arbitrage. If you want to earn interest on money you spent or invest elsewhere, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com or email me at Ference, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end. Again, Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you'll reach me. I need to share some good news to lighten the mood and not be so frustrated about what's been going on with our country with all the folks that are here that shouldn't be here and hurting our economy and inflation and all that. I'm going to share a few meetings I had with people this past week that are really actually quite exciting and encouraging. This is where my passion is. I get asked often, what do you actually do? Primarily three things. One is I specialize in index products, index annuities, IUL, life products. These are financial tools that are very powerful. It's the best time in over 40 years. I always share it's the golden age of fixed assets. What a lot of people don't realize is they think if you want guarantees, you have to give up strong returns. And that's just not true. Now, granted, index products have gotten somewhat of a bad rap because many of them do not offer strong returns or have not done so. It's not the product's fault, so to speak. It's really about being in the wrong indexes. And the analogy I use often is to win a horse race, you need a fast horse and a good jockey. Look, if you're in a plow horse, you're probably not going to get very far very fast, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. Horse is the indexes. I have access to proprietary information. I'm told by the company that less than 1% of agents and advisors have access to this. And it shows the 1, 5, 10 years of hundreds of indexes. This isn't public record, folks. It's difficult to obtain. Actually seeing what these different indexes have done is game-changing. So if you meet with me, it's yourpersonalbank.com. If you want to contact me, I'll show you how the sausage is made. I'll show you what I see. And you will see very quickly that about 80% of indexes out there average low single digits over the past decade. The old 80-20 rule, about 20% really stand out, offering 10, 11, 12% or more sometimes. We had folks almost a 28% return in 1 year a couple years ago on an index annuity product with no downside risk. That's the other strength about index products. The companies protect the downside. Now, the first thing I need to touch on is a question I get a lot, is you mentioned this proprietary software. I've had clients even reach out to companies and other agents and advisors asking about the performance reports of these indexes. And for the most part, they get a blank deer in the headlights kind of look. And one client asked me, why so few agents even aware of this? And why doesn't the company market it so? The organization I work with, they created this as a benefit to their marketing organization. See, here's the thing you need to understand. Anyone who's works as a financial person has to be associated with somebody. Now, there's a few of us, like about 10%, that are completely independent. We can work with just about anybody. Most, about 90%, are associated with some organization, which means they have a limited product line available. You may or may not get the best product, plain and simple. An independent, like myself, about 10% of us have access to, like I said, nearly every company, every product, so we can get you the best product available. But like a co-op, we join these marketing organizations because these insurance companies and financial institutions are multi-billion-dollar companies, and, I'm just one person, or even if I have an agency, it's still small potatoes in comparison to billions and billions of dollars. So like a co-op, we join this, work together, and get a group buying discount, get better returns for our clients. And some of these marketing organizations offer different benefits. This one I work with focuses on the top 1%, have been in business for quite some time. They really target the cream of the crop, so to speak. And they offer some benefits to us, like this index performance report that's proprietary. They've created this. And so they are offering it as a benefit to their members. So it's not something they want to offer to everyone, because this is one of their hooks, if you will, to bring people like myself to do business with them. Because I could do business with just about anyone. So that hopefully that answers the question why I have access to these index performance reports, and most people don't. Like 99% of advisors and agents just don't. But it's game changing because you're dealing with hundreds of indexes out there. S&P 500, NASDAQ, Russell. There's all kinds of proprietary ones, anywhere from Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, you name it. There's hundreds of them. And to keep track of what all these different indexes do, or what their returns have been, like I said, 1, 5, 10-year actual returns, next to impossible. Before I had access to this, much like I think most advisors who want to see their clients do well, but you're taking an educated guess in terms of what indexes you should put somebody in. Oftentimes you're going based on what a marketer is telling you, or maybe some past experience, but you don't really have the full picture and be able to look at all these different index products and to see what they've actually done, which ones have a good long-term history of getting double-digit returns consistently over a decade, 15, 20 years even, some even longer, versus another one that's never seen a 5% return in the past decade, ever. Look, I understand a low-performing index that's maybe never done much might step up and outperform one that's averaged 10, 11, 12% plus over a decade or longer, but the odds are pretty low. You know what I'm saying? The one that does really well consistently is probably going to much more likely to do well in the future versus one that's probably never done anything. So that's one way that's game-changing and what I bring to the table for folks. The index products are really designed for that person who's looking to kind of set it and forget it, what I call a passive investor. They want to grow their money for a rainy day, retirement, something like that, which is the vast majority of people. They just want to find a good place for their money. They want it to grow. They like the idea of it won't go down in the bad years. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to stress out about it. You never have a negative year. Love that. And by the way, that's very, very valuable. I was speaking to another person this week. He was trading. He got stressed out, had gone to cash because, as he put it, while I'm trading, I'm always thinking about or watching my positions. And even when I'm not trading, I'm thinking about, should I have invested in this position or that one? And he decided he just wanted to live his life again. He was retirement age. And I asked him a simple question. He had a good income, retirement income. And he mentioned sometimes he would invest, he could make $5,000 in a day. He also pointed out he could lose $5 or $10,000 in a day. And I asked him a simple question. If you make $5,000 in a day, which is great, is that going to change your life? Are you going to do anything different, really? He's like, no, not really. And if you lose $5,000 or $10,000 in a day, will that bother you? He's like, yeah, big time. That's the problem. I said, then why are you stressing yourself out? Because you have the income in place, you're retired, you're good to go. Look, put the money in here, let it grow. We have products that have averaged 10, 11, 12% average return for the past decade plus with no downside risk. Put it there, let it roll. Great for a rainy day, and you don't have to stress out about it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to watch the markets. You can enjoy your life. Well, he liked that idea, as I think most people do. So that's the passive investor. The second thing I do is the active investor. And what do I mean by that? That's the person who has capital needs. They are an entrepreneur. They have a business. They're a real estate investor. They're using money. They're borrowing money. They're using capital to build their business or invest or whatever. Well, that's where the personal bank policies, the high dividend paying policies or IULs can operate that way, where you can earn more in interest or dividends than you cost you to borrow. Your cost of borrowing is less, and you get to keep the difference. We have fixed products with guarantees that are paying 6% tax-free, and the borrowing rates are around 5%. So if you're making 6 and it costs you 5 to borrow, what's your money doing? You're keeping the difference, and you're using it to maybe buy equipment for your business or real estate or some other investment. We also have IUL products that can be used that way. 7 to 9% average annual returns for the past 10, 15, 20 years even. And we have a 5% locked-in guaranteed borrowing rate, life of the contract, the rest of your life. And look, if you're making 7, 8, 9% on the money and it costs you 5 to borrow, you get to keep the difference. What's your money doing? So you're still picking up 2, 3, 4, 5% on the money that you're using to buy equipment for your business or buy real estate or whatever. Again, the active investor, the person is using capital, borrowing money to build something, typically a business or investment. The third thing I do is what many of you are probably the most familiar with would be retirement income planning. 26 years, one of my specialties is how do you maximize returns with guarantees, maximize retirement income. Many people have heard of the 4% withdrawal rate, which gives you a high likelihood of success on a portfolio that you won't run out of money in retirement. So what it means is if you have $1 million, for example, invested in a portfolio, depending on your mix of assets, Monte Carlo simulations, these are simulations that have been run thousands of times, show that your likelihood of success, or in other words, not running out of money in retirement, is about 85 to 95%, depending on age and things like that. If you had $1 million invested in a portfolio, you can withdraw for $40,000 the first year and so on. Through income retirement planning, if we have products that'll pay out guaranteed 5, 6, 7% guaranteed income payouts, depending on age, etc., which means your likelihood of success, by the way, is 100% of not running out of money in retirement because these incomes will pay you guaranteed for the rest of your life. And we can mix and match with different things with guarantees. But bottom line, what I'm trying to say is your withdrawal rate can be increased by 50% or more. Oftentimes when I'm working with retirement income planning clients, we can look at like a safe withdrawal rate of 6% with guarantees. So it's not going to run out, which means if you have $1 million invested, you can start with $60,000 a year instead of $40,000. And when I share that with people and I say, hey, I can increase your income by 50% with guarantees, well, they like that a lot. And that's something I've done for 26 years. We have software that can figure that out depending on whether you're wanting to retire now, need income now, or at some point in the future. So we can calculate all that out. So those are the main three things that I do, is help people through index products maximize returns, unlimited upside, no downside risk. We've got products have averaged 10, 11, 12% in your pocket, real dollars in your pocket on average over the last decade plus. If you're an active business owner, need access to capital, I can show you how to access capital at a low or even no cost. In fact, even get positive arbitrage. So I can reduce your cost of borrowing tremendously, which increases your profitability on your investments. We've reduced or even eliminated your cost of borrowing. Tremendously more profitable by getting the positive arbitrage. Or third and lastly, if you're looking at or nearing or are retired and you want to increase your income for retirement, in most cases, like 98, 99% of the time, I'm able to do that. Oftentimes, we're able to increase your retirement income by 50% or more with guarantees versus where you were before. If any of that interests you, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com, or you can email me at Ferenc, no E, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E, at yourpersonalbank.com. Stay tuned to the last segment. I got a few more things I want to share on some other meetings I did that I think you're going to find quite interesting, and they were fun. Probably learn a little bit more.
This is Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. My show focuses on creating tax-free buckets of money, insured, guaranteed, highly liquid, and the ability to create positive arbitrage. Did you know this is the best time in over 40 years to invest in index annuities? An index annuity allows you to 1. Grow your money safely without market risk. Once gains are locked in, they're guaranteed against future market loss. 2. Double-digit potential upside on good market years with no losses in bad years. Principal is guaranteed. 3. A 7 to 8% fixed interest option is available in the first year. If you're interested in growing your money with potential index-related gains without downside market risk, this is the best time in over 40 years to consider an annuity. If your annuity is over 2 years old, the newer products likely have far superior potential returns. Please contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you'll reach me. Or you can email me at Ference, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end, Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you'll reach me, like I said. I'm going to touch on a few of the meetings I had this past week that I think you'll find very interesting and informative and educational too. So I met with this couple, doing quite well. But like I find with a lot of people like that with business and investments that they've been doing, as I put it to them, scattered. In other words, he had stuff here, stuff there, but with no real overarching plan. They wanted to look at retirement income. What did they need to do to accomplish that, plus have some funds available for their business? So we did a combination of things that reduced market risk with index products, maximize growth on their money, showed them some IULs and some fixed life products where the money would grow with guarantees, no downside risk, and tax-free. So tax-deferred growth and access it tax-free via policy loans or bank lines of credit, anywhere from 1 to 5% positive arbitrage, depending on the fixed or the IUL products that we chose. This is some of the tools that many institutional investors and wealthy investors use. Asset is growing. The cash is growing in the policy. Take a bank line to borrow against it or a policy loan. If the funds you're growing exceed the cost of borrowing, you get to keep the difference. And basically, in most years, that's exactly what's happened. Pretty much every year in the last 40 years, by the way, that's what has happened. So we're able to really improve their financial situation in terms of growth, reduce the taxes, and we're able to put together a pretty strong estimate of what their income would be in retirement, which created a lot of, alleviated a lot of concern because it's not something they'd ever really done. They understood it was something they needed, but had just never done that. So by going through that process with them, they're much, much more likely to hit their targets. And now they have a plan of attack, if you know what I'm trying to say, on what to do and what was the best way to go to get there. And the other thing I've shared, a retirement income plan is not something that's chiseled in stone. I mean, things change. Stuff happens. Life happens. And so this is something that we set up. We have a plan. We have parameters we're looking at. But then, if something changes or their focus changes or goals, whatever, or their business, then we can always adjust accordingly. But at least you have a target. And one of the other things I've found, and I've done with a lot of folks, they'll say, well, I want to retire in a year or 3 years, 5, whatever the time frame is. And by doing the retirement income planning, and again, we can do a lot of this with guarantees, and we can increase the income they would receive off a typical portfolio most of the time, like 98, 99% of the time. And the increase of income is like 50% or more, because we can do a 6%, sometimes 7% withdrawal rate with guarantees. My point is I'm able to then give them a better idea of maybe how much longer they need to work. Can they retire? I had one client who was just itching to retire in the year and a half. And when we ran the numbers, realized, frankly, they could retire now and be fine. They're going to go ahead and continue for the next year. But like he said, the husband, this gives me a lot of comfort knowing that we basically have arrived at the goals. We can accomplish what we need to do. We can retire comfortably, do everything that we want to do, even if I stopped working now. And anything I do, if I work another year and a half, it just means we'll just have that much more. I said, exactly. You're going to be even in a better position. Others, I've had to tell them, you want to retire in a year or two, maybe you should think about working another couple of years. I know it's not news you want to hear, but you'd rather know that now than to do it and then run into a financial challenge in the future, right? What's one of the biggest fears of seniors? Running out of money before you run out of time. And by doing some solid retirement income planning, and having some guarantees, that's the thing. By having guarantees and having some guaranteed income, you take a lot of the uncertainty off the table. You take a ton of risk off the table. And you know what that does for a lot of people? They can breathe again. They can relax. They can be more comfortable. They can enjoy their life. That's what it's about, isn't it? I mean, if you've worked hard an entire lifetime, don't you want to be able to enjoy it? Enjoy the fruits of your labor? I think most people do. You want to have to be watching the markets or worried about. I know I discuss a lot about geopolitical, economic stuff. Frankly, I do that a lot. A lot of you listeners that don't have the products that my clients do. Most of my clients have a lot of guarantees and insured stuff, guaranteed income, index products with unlimited upside, no downside risk, principals guaranteed. So if we have a geopolitical issue and the markets crash or whatever, they're fine. They're not going to suffer the issues that, sadly, many of you listening to me right now very well may if you don't do something different. Taking some risk off the table, particularly at a point in time where we have a lot of economic uncertainty, and I strongly believe that's where we're at right now. It's just too early to tell where the markets are headed. Are they going to be volatile? Are they going to go up from here? Are they going to go down? I don't think anyone really knows. I think the best guess is volatility, uncertainty. That's the problem. Well, by taking some of that risk off the table so that if things go the wrong way, you're good, you're covered, you're protected. And if they go the right way, great, you take advantage of the upside. By the way, if you're in a good index product, do you realize that you can gain oftentimes as much as you would if you were directly in the markets? See, that's the common fallacy that's out there. If you want guarantees, you have to give up strong returns. That is absolutely not true. It is false. The problem is the perception out there has happened because so many of these index products have poor indexes. They're invested in the wrong index. And the reason why is the agent and advisor doesn't know any better because they don't have the proprietary, non-public 1, 5, 10-year index performance of all these hundreds of indexes that exist. And so they don't really know either. So they're going by what someone's telling them, a marketer, whatever's telling them. How accurate is that? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But I will actually show you. You will see yourself. This is something we do together. If you want to see how the sausage is made, you want to see what I'm seeing, you should contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or email me at Ferenc, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E, F-E-R-E-N-C at yourpersonalbank.com. I'll show you the difference, and it's eye-opening. Again, 80% of index products that exist have poor returns, low single digit. That's just a fact. Over the past decade or longer, about 20% have strong index returns, double digit, consistently, strong returns, past decade or longer. Which would you prefer? Which one do you want to be in? I had another interesting meeting with a client, longtime client of mine, over a decade. One of the products that they had was an older index product that had performed well previously. They'd had these accounts for 9 years. And recently, some things have changed about the product. This happens to where now it was far less competitive. Again, the downside was guaranteed. All index products, IULs, index annuities, any product, every company, they all protect the downside. They all protect the principal. That's good, but not all of them strong returns that they should have because you're not in the right indexes. Well, this is one that had been good, but over time, the companies changed some of what they have available and how much your upside can be. Some of them have caps. Okay, caps I'm not a fan of because that caps your upside. Some of them have fees. I don't like fees. I'd rather have no fee. So I tend to favor no fee, no cap, unlimited upside, and strong participation rates. What does that mean? You're going to get most, if not all, or more than what the index does. There's really low participation rates, also bad ones, but the better ones are going to get you 75, 85. I've got one that does 225% participation rate, no cap, no fee, 1 year on a really strong S&P 500 index. The return last year on that product for my clients was 23% in 2025. That's a fact. That is net of everything in your pocket. So I'm not blowing smoke. I'm not exaggerating. I'm sharing with you what has actually happened and what is actually available out there. So these clients, longtime clients, like I said, their product was just not that good, had a small surrender cost to get out. But I was able to find them a new product, a better one, that the average returns were easily double, if not triple, of what they'd been getting for the past 10 years and paid them a 20% signing bonus up front. So now they were up by nearly 20% jumpstart forward from where they were before. Quite happy about that. And their upside potential gains going forward, based on past history, will be double to triple to what they've been getting. This is also part of why some of the products today are so much better than they were previously. And another common misconception I run into out there, and I ran into this with another client, where she had a product that's not been performing. She's had it for 2.5 years, and they told her that it had a bonus. I run into this more often than I would like, is the bonus was not on the cash value, it was on the income account value, which is, in my opinion, rather deceptive. When I explained this, she then understood. So her cash wasn't going up. It was the bonus and all the growth was based on the income portion of the account. Now, if you're looking to guarantee lifetime income, I shared some of that earlier. If you're going to maximize retirement income, for some people, that might be a thing they're looking for. It lasts as long as you do. You cannot outlive the money. Think of it like a pension check. If you want to maximize that type of thing, we have products that do pay tremendous bonuses on the income, can increase by anywhere upwards of 8 to 10% per year, turn on the income stream, guarantee income for life. Now, if you're looking for that, great. We got great tools for that, but this client was not. She just wanted to grow her money, and she wanted to grow it safely. And she had the absolute wrong product for it because it wasn't growing. In fact, she wasn't seeing any growth because all the bonuses and everything was geared towards the income, which was something she didn't want nor need. And unfortunately, when she purchased it, did not realize that, did not understand. This frustrates me greatly because it just makes my job harder because some people get upset and frustrated because, frankly, it was somewhat deceptive. Now, either that agent didn't know what they were doing, or worse, they did and did it anyway. Now, the good news is I was able to find her a product with a real 20% bonus, and this was somebody for age 79. I've got great products up through age 85, by the way. She had a surrender charge to get out of the old product of about 8%, but a 20% bonus put her up 12% ahead, up above, boom, right out the gate. And this one actually grows. It's averaged about 8 to 10% per year, this particular product with this strong bonus. It's a salvage situation, as I call it, but she's quite happy because I put her well above where she started 2.5 years ago, and her growth going forward will likely be significantly higher than previously, and we eliminated her fees. These are the kinds of things I do for folks when they contact me. They share with me what they're looking for, and the comment she shared with me that really did my heart good was, you really listen. You really listen to what I'm looking for. I said, yeah, that's my goal. I know with the show I talk a lot. Well, because I have to. But when we meet, the conversation is far, far different. Yes, I'll educate you about things to help you understand. I'll show you how the sausage is made. I'll show you how we pick the highest performing indexes and the best returns and the biggest bonuses and all that good stuff. But I listen a lot more than I talk because I want to know what you're looking for, what your goal is, what you're trying to accomplish, and then I'm going to find the tool that best fits your goals. If you want more information, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com. Email me at Ferenc, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end, Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com. Stay tuned next week to the Your Personal Bank Show for more great information, and as long as it's on our money, in God we trust.
Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guests of this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required.
Concerned about market risk? I'm Ferenc Toth, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. The S&P 500 valuations are higher than at any time ever recorded in stock market history. This includes 1929 and 1999. We all know what happened afterwards. It wasn't pretty. Elevated valuations increase risk to the downside. Annuities and Your Personal Bank offer unlimited upside with no downside market risk. Your principal is guaranteed. Contact Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com to maximize returns, reduce market risk, increase liquidity, and reduce taxes.